So now that we know what life science is, let's look at how scientists classify living things. So we first have to define life, and scientists define life by having 5 characteristics. The first of these characteristics is being made up of more than one or more cells. The second characteristic is that they need energy in order to stay alive. They will respond to stimuli in their environment. They have the ability to grow and reproduce. And lastly, they're able to maintain a stable internal environment. So now we're going to go take a look at each of these in more detail. So cells are the basic building blocks of all life. An organism can be single-celled, meaning that there's only one cell, and multicellular, meaning there's more than one cell. In the human body, there are trillions of cells, so this would make humans multicellular. A single-celled organism would be like a bacteria. All living cells share certain basic structures like the cell membrane, and the cell membrane just surrounds the cell and kind of acts like the skin. So all cells have a cell membrane. Living things require energy. The energy is the ability to change or to move matter, and it requires energy to stay alive. Producers use sunlight for energy to produce their own food, like plants, and they use a process called photosynthesis in order to do this. And then the ultimate source of energy comes from the sunlight. Consumers then are organisms that have to eat in order to obtain energy. They don't have the ability to produce their own food from within their own bodies. So an example here would be cows. And then lastly, we have decomposers. Decomposers are a type of consumer, and they get their energy from dead organic matter. So this is anything that has died. Organic refers to living or had been living. So mushrooms are a prime example of a decomposer. Living things respond to their environment. This is kind of like an action-reaction kind of situation. A stimulus is something in the environment that causes a reaction of an organism, and then the response is reaction to the stimulus. So, for example, when it gets cold out, that would be the stimulus is a cold temperature, and the response then would be maybe shivering. Oppositely, if it's hot out, in order to keep our body temperature where it likes to be, we will sweat, which would be the response. Plants have the ability to respond to their environment, and so you can go ahead and watch that video on your own as well. Living things grow and reproduce. Multicellular organisms grow by increasing the size and number of their cells, while single-celled organisms will just grow in size. Their one cell will get bigger and bigger and bigger. All cells will reproduce eventually. This is a process of making a new generation, and there are 2 types of reproduction. We have sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction is reproduction that requires different sexes to produce offspring. This will have two parents. The offspring are a combination of traits of the two parents. Whereas asexual reproduction is reproduction that requires only a single parent, and the daughter cells that are produced will be identical to the parent. So that means that the parent and offspring are identical. With sexual reproduction, the parent is not identical to the offspring. And lastly, being able to maintain a stable internal environment is called homeostasis. And so this is where we get our ability to sweat from. All of the mechanisms for controlling factors such as internal temperature, the amount of water in your cells, the acidity of your body, has to be maintained. If any of that were to change, your body starts to go into survival mode to get it kicked back into where it wants to be. If homeostasis can't be maintained, the normal processes inside the body get disrupted. You can't digest the way you want to, that kind of thing. So these are the 5 ways that scientists determine if something is living: being made of cells, the need of energy, the ability to respond to stimuli, growing and reproduction, and the ability to maintain a stable internal environment or homeostasis.